Allow me to thank you for the privilege of serving as your Vice President.
Letter to Mike Pence, the former Vice President of the United States of America, November 6, 2024. Dear Mike, it is with a sorrowful heart I write to you this brief letter. I have titled it The Pence Drift. Ask me why, and I will tell you. You got the opportunity to be picked by President Donald Trump to be his running mate in 2016. That shot you into the limelight of American and global political landscape. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that not much people knew you prior to your appointment in America. Through Donald Trump, your name became a household one across the world. Then January 6, 2021 came, and the world saw your true loyalty to your boss, Donald Trump. He was fighting the lies of the media from all sides. He was fighting an alleged insurrection accusation. He was fighting imprisonment and bankruptcy calls, etc., but you were nowhere to be found. Your loud silence and your distancing was pretty glaring. You were still his running mate, the Vice President of the United States. You could have stood by your boss, Donald Trump, but you failed to. You didn't need to go to the cross with him, but at least you could have helped him carry that cross, just as Simeon helped Jesus Christ carry his cross to the hill of Golgotha. Of course, Simeon wasn't going to be hanged on the cross with Jesus, but he helped in his own small way anyways. That is what you could have done for Donald Trump, your boss, and have his back. You left him to fight all the wars alone by himself. Not just that, you betrayed him and threw him under the bus. Or better put, you threw him to the wolves of CNN, the BBC, the MSNBC, and the rest. You also made many bad remarks about him in public, painting Trump to America and the world as someone who puts himself and his ego above the Constitution. Finally, you didn't only declare that you're not going to support him again, you also became one of his contestants in the primaries for the Republican flag-bearer-ship ticket. You claimed that you made this decision after much prayer and careful deliberation and consultation with your family. Trump didn't give up. He pursued his vision and got the ticket as the leader of the Republican Party. And to the glory of the Almighty God, your former boss, Donald Trump, has been re-elected as the 47th President of the United States. But in your place today is a certain J.D. Vance. Your life has taught me a lot of lessons for life, and that is the reason why I am putting this letter together. I may be wrong, but I am sure Donald Trump didn't kick you out. You perhaps broke away from him through your loud silence, betrayal, and disloyalty. But who God has blessed, no man curse. And while Trump will go down in history as a two-term president of America, you will go down in history as a one-term vice president. That's not impressive. There are some people God made them for greatness, and our greatness can be realized through our partnership and collaboration with them. Oh yes, there's a blessing in partnership. We must be grateful and must thank our stars whenever God makes our paths cross such men's. God spared Donald Trump's life and made him survive the 2 assassination attempts as a testament to the fact that he was with him, and that he has chosen him for such a time as this and for a specific purpose in America and the world at large. Sadly, you cannot be found because another has taken your place, and no one would hear from you again. How would you feel seeing J.D. Vance occupy the office that you were meant to take? How would you feel the day Donald Trump and J.D. Vance would be sworn into office? You will miss it, Mike. So here are a few Bible scriptures that came to mind. The first one is from Revelation chapter 3 verse 11. It says, "I am coming soon. Hold on to what you have, so that no one will take your crown." The second verse is from Psalm chapter 109 verse 8. It says, "May his days be few, may another take his place of leadership." Another version said, "Let his years be few, let someone else take his position." Again, another translation said, "May his days be few, may another take his office." Indeed, someone has taken your place of leadership, position, and office. Then the last verse I will leave you with is from Matthew chapter 20 verse 16. It says, "So the last shall be first, and the first last. For many are called, but few are chosen." And now to anyone reading this, I want to share something with you too. Be careful who you quickly betray and abandon, and be careful who you quickly break away from. Some people come into our lives for a purpose just to make us shine and great, and cause us to be somebody. They come to be a blessing to your life. Don't easily abandon them. Stay a little longer. Hold on for a while. Let prayer and honest reflections go into whatever decision you make concerning that association. It could be marriage, friendship, career, or whatever. Finally, never be ungrateful to someone on whose shoulder you've stood before. Don't easily fight someone you have said thank you to before. Never do that. This is my letter to you, Mike. I hope it finds you will. Yours truly, God has common sense.
Will you be endorsing your
This is how it all started. Pay close attention.
You were on the ticket with him last time around.
Well, Martha, I appreciate the question. And it should come as no surprise that I will not be endorsing Donald Trump this year. Let's be clear on this point. It wasn't just that they asked for a pause. The president specifically asked me, and his gaggle of crackpot lawyers asked me to literally reject votes, which would have resulted in the issue being turned over to the House of Representatives, and literally chaos would have ensued. So, well, Martha, I just people can read the indictment, and frankly, I've said before, I had hoped it had not come to this point. You know, I don't know if the government can meet the standard, the burden of proof beyond reasonable doubt for criminal charges, but the American people deserve to know that President Trump and his advisors didn't just ask me to pause. They asked me to reject votes, return votes, essentially to overturn the election, and to keep faith with the oath that I made to the American people and to Almighty God. I rejected that out of hand, and I did my duty that day.
Well,
irrespective of the indictment, I want the American people to know that I had no right to overturn the election. And then on that day, President Trump asked me to put him over the Constitution. But I chose the Constitution, and I always will. Anyone who puts themselves over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. And anyone who asks someone else to put themselves over the Constitution should never be president of the United States again. What the president maintained that day, and frankly has said over and over again over the last 2.5 years, is completely false. I dismissed it out of hand, but sadly, the president was surrounded by a group of crackpot lawyers that kept telling him what his itching ears wanted to hear. And I had hoped that on this matter of January 6th, that it wouldn't come to this, because I do believe that this is going to further ignite the divide in the country. It'll be up to the government now to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this actually represented criminal activity. But what I want the American people to know is that I know in my heart of hearts that I did my duty under the Constitution that day. And between me and my former running mate, I cannot endorse President Trump's continuing assertion that I should have set aside my oath to support and defend the Constitution and acted in a way that would have overturned the election in January of 2021.
Former Vice President Mike Pence joins us in person in studio. Good morning to you and happy St. Patrick's Day.
Good morning, Margaret. Good to be with you.
There's a lot to get to with you today, but I want to begin with some remarks Mr. Trump made yesterday at a rally in Ohio. He walked onto the stage to a song recorded by a choir of prisoners facing charges for their role in the violence of January the 6th. Take a listen.
You see the spirit from the hostages, and that's what they are, as hostages. They've been treated terribly and very unfairly, and you know that, and everybody knows that. And we're going to be working on that soon. The first day we get into office, we're going to save our country, and we're going to work with the people to treat those unbelievable patriots, and they were unbelievable patriots and are.
I know in the past you've said Mr. Trump's reckless words endangered you and your family on that day. What do you think when you hear him refer to those people facing charges as hostages and patriots?
Well, I think it's very unfortunate at a time that there are American hostages being held in Gaza, that the president or any other leaders would refer to people that are moving through our justice system as hostages. And it's just unacceptable. I was there on January 6th. I've no doubt in my mind, Margaret, that that some people were caught up in the moment and that entered the Capitol. And they're certainly entitled to due process of law for any nonviolent activities that day. But the assaults on police officers, ultimately an environment that claimed lives, is something that I think was tragic that day, and I'll never diminish it.
And the legal system is processing these individuals through and giving them trials. I wonder what you think, though, about Mr. Trump and whether the public needs to hear and see some of the evidence in regard to the federal charges related to his alleged role in January 6th. Do you think that needs to happen before Election Day?
Well, I think the American people lived through that moment. I and my family and my team lived through it at the Capitol that day. I think most Americans know what happened. As I've said before, I truly do believe that that the judgment about the president's conduct that day should have been left to the American people. I know it's been brought into a criminal trial now, and we have cases around the country that have been brought related to that, notably in Georgia. But at the end of the day, I think the American people know what happened that day. And I said the people that ransacked the Capitol need to be held to the fullest account of the law, and I believe that they are. But the judgment about the president's efforts that day, I think, can be left to the American people. But look, I said last week that after a lot of prayer and reflection, I've come to the conclusion that I won't be endorsing Donald Trump this year. Look, I'm very proud of the record of our administration, Margaret. It was a record that left America more prosperous and more secure, and our liberties and the sanctity of life stronger than ever before in my lifetime.
But you've said Mr. Trump's walked away from conservative
Well,
principles.
I do. I said it during my presidential campaign. The president and I have profound differences, and many people think it's just over January 6th. And frankly, the fact that the president continues to insist that I had the right to overturn the election that day is a fundamental difference. But I want to be clear that, I've forgiven the president in my heart for what happened that day. As a Christian, I'm required to do that. I've prayed for him in that regard. But the issue of fealty to the Constitution is not a small matter, but it's not just that. I mean, the reason that I cannot in good conscience endorse Donald Trump this year also has to do with the fact that he is walking away, not just from keeping faith with the Constitution on that day, but also, Margaret, with a commitment to fiscal responsibility, a commitment to the sanctity of life, a commitment to American leadership in the world. I mean, the president's reversal just in the last week on TikTok, following an administration where we literally changed the national consensus on China, is the reason why after a lot of reflection, I just concluded I cannot endorse the agenda that Donald Trump is carrying into this national debate.
Is that the final word from you? Can you be persuaded, if he changes tax, to vote for him? Would you vote for him?
I won't be endorsing Donald Trump this year. But look, I want to be clear.
But would you vote for him?
I respect the right of Republican voters who've made it clear who they're for, who they want to be our standard bearer this year. What I'm going to focus my energies on is in what remains of this year on what we should be for. Because I joined this party when I was in college because I heard the voice and the values of another good Irishman named Ronald Reagan, who said that we need to have a strong national defense, but also recognize we're leader of the free world, that we need to stand for traditional values, the sanctity of life. We need to stand for the Constitution and limited government. And in the balance of this year and in the years ahead, I'm just going to continue to champion those values that I think are not just good for the Republican Party, Margaret, but I think that they are the right policies for a stronger, more prosperous America.
But I ask you about persuasion and voting because this is not just Mr. Trump. He has taken the party with him. He has taken the Senate Republican leadership who are endorsing him. He has taken the House Republican endorsements with him, too, in terms of leadership. Are all of those people, from Mitch McConnell to Mike Johnson, walking away from the conservative principles, you say?
Well, I don't want to say that they are. I want to say that my deep
They
conviction
are
is
endorsing Donald Trump.
that this is a conservative party. This is still a party, I believe, that stands for less government, less taxes, American leadership in the world, traditional moral values, and the right to life. I just think, frankly, the disaster of the Biden administration has resulted in people going back to what's familiar. And I understand that. I worked day in and day out for 4.5 years to build that record of the Trump-Pence administration. I'm incredibly proud of it. But as I look at what Donald Trump is running on now, I simply cannot, in good conscience, endorse his candidacy this year.
On the issues of the economy, which many Republicans refer to as, something the Trump-Pence administration did well with until COVID, Trump's campaigning on that. Last night he was talking about electric vehicles in particular and said when it comes to Chinese companies who manufacture in Mexico, he's going to put in tariffs. But I want you to listen to exactly what he said.
We're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars if I get elected. Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it.
What does that mean? And given how divided the country is, does that language concern you, particularly when it comes to political violence?
Well, first, I want to commend you, Margaret, for putting that in context. I mean, I woke up this morning seeing online all the discussion about bloodbath, and as you've just reflected, the president was clearly talking about the impact of imports devastating the American automotive industry.
Was that clear to you? Because it was a little muddled.
It was. But look, I want people to know, look, the president and I, it was very clear for 4 years, the president and I have different styles. We're different men. But my differences with him are not over style. It's not over language. And as I said before, it's not personal. I mean, for me, the reason why I won't endorse Donald Trump this year is because I see him departing from the mainstream conservative agenda that has defined the Republican Party over the last 40 years and still has the best hope for the future of the country.
And it sounds like you're trying to move the party back in that direction, which is why I'm asking you if you're persuadable here. But on that point you made about the commitment to the sanctity of human life, you say Mr. Trump's walking away from it. President Biden is telling voters that Donald Trump's trying to ban access to abortion, even though he really hasn't given any specifics as to what he actually thinks. What would you like him to say? That he will endorse a 15-week restriction like you did?
Well, I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for it. I couldn't be more proud to have played a role in the administration that appointed 3 of the justices that sent Roe versus Wade to the ash heap of history.
But there doesn't seem to be a conservative consensus on this issue, which is so motivating to so many voters.
But look, the states around the country have been advancing the principles of life. I was very disappointed during our presidential campaign when Donald Trump denounced and said a pro-life bill, a 6-week bill, enacted in Florida, which had already been enacted in Georgia and in Ohio, was, I think, in his words, terrible. Look, we're a pro-life party. I mean, I really do believe that there is a national role. I'd like to see our nominee endorse a minimum 15-week ban, but also I'd like to see a nominee that's affirming the sanctity of life as it's debated in states across this country. This is a pro-life party.
Protections for IVF?
Absolutely.
And endorsing, should embryos be considered children?
Well, look, I'm someone that believes in the sanctity of human life, that life begins at conception. My family, as you know, Margaret, has benefited by fertility treatments, and I think they should be protected. But I also believe that in the days ahead, we would do well to ensure that that unborn human life, including embryos, are properly treated and properly respected in the law.
Well, Mr. President, I appreciate you allowing me to join you on this incredible journey. I thank you for the trust that you placed in me. And I think that we just witnessed the greatest political comeback in the history of the United States of America.
The President of the United States.
The U.S. President is Donald Trump.
Yeah!